Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. Now, with all of AMD and Intel CPUs launched for 2023, the Ryzen 5 7600 and Ryzen 5 7600X still hold the title of best gaming CPU in 2023 at the mid-range, providing insane value for gaming PC builds. Now, in this updated Ryzen 7600 PC build guide for 2023, we'll cover the best RAM for Ryzen 7600, the best motherboard for Ryzen 7600, the best graphics card for Ryzen 7600, the best cooler for Ryzen 7600, and we'll consider the best CPU and GPU combos for your money. Remember, if you get value out of this video, please give it a like as it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe, click that bell icon, that way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by World of Warships, the exciting free-to-play online PC game with monthly new content releases like the Godzilla vs. Kong collaboration. And from November 16th to November 30th, there's an in-game event collaboration between World of Warships and the popular High School Fleet anime series. Jump in with multiple ship classes, 40 unique maps, and amazing graphics. And it's available on console as well. Download the game using the link in the video description. Use the promo code HSF2023 to receive a huge starter pack, including 200 doubloons, 1 million credits, 7 days premium account time, and 2 High School Fleet commanders. What are you waiting for? Jump into the action and get the promo using the link in the video description. Should you buy the Ryzen 5 7600 versus the Ryzen 5 7600X? Well, honestly, there's very little difference between them once you turn on Precision Boost Overdrive for both CPUs, which is something I recommend for best performance. Now, the only real differences are that the Ryzen 7600X, it's a tiny bit faster under full load with an ultra high-end GPU like the RTX 4090, while the Ryzen 7600, it comes with an included stock cooler, but I'm gonna recommend replacing it anyway. My advice, just buy whichever's cheaper, and if there's the same price, grab the Ryzen 5 7600X. What's the best GPU for the Ryzen 7600? Remember, when we're designing a gaming PC, particularly with a tighter budget, we want to spend as much money as we can getting the fastest graphics card that we can afford, then just get a CPU that won't bottleneck it. Now, it usually makes more sense to upgrade to the next GPU tier than upgrading the CPU, until we get to much faster and more expensive graphics cards. Gaming price to performance is where the Ryzen 7600 shines over its Intel competitors like the i5-13600K or i5-14600K. The minimum GPU that I would recommend for a Ryzen 7600 is the Radeon RX 6700 XT or RTX 4060 Ti 16GB version, as anything below this, and we should probably be using a budget CPU platform like the Ryzen 5600 or Intel i5-12400, which are fine for lower end GPUs. At the higher end, you can take your Ryzen 7600 all the way up to an NVIDIA RTX 4090 or AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX GPU, but I'd look to jump up to a more powerful Ryzen 7800 X3D with those graphics cards. That leaves a pretty wide range of GPUs for the Ryzen 7600, and some key values right now are the Radeon RX 7800 XT in this build. Big thank you to Gigabyte for sending over their gaming OC model, which right now retails for the MSRP of $499 and which I've seen tested by other outlets as one of the better 7800 XT models. My personal build has an RX 7900 XT and it performs very well. On the NVIDIA side, the RTX 4070 is also very attractive GPU value, especially if you can find one closer to $520. We cover the best GPU for the money every month, so check out our monthly GPU market update video linked in the video description to see what the current best GPU is for your money. What's the best RAM for the Ryzen 7600X and Ryzen 7600? The great news is that AMD completely fixed DDR5 RAM compatibility this summer. In fact, that's one of the reasons that we're updating our 7600 build guide to give you better RAM recommendations. It's also the reason I strongly urge you to update the BIOS on your motherboard to the latest non-beta version to ensure that you have this fix. And we show you how to do this very easily using BIOS Flashback in our How to Build a PC guide, so I'll leave that link down in the video description. With the latest BIOS, the best speed in terms of both performance and price right now in the US market is either 6000 CL30 or 5600 CL28, as either the same absolute latency and performance. I don't recommend exceeding 6000 speed as it's been shown to negatively impact gaming performance. If you are in a tougher DDR5 market outside the US, slower kits are fine like 5600 CL32 or even 5600 CL36. Just remember that both speed and cache latency are important to judge the overall performance of RAM. In terms of the amount of RAM, while 16 gigabytes total is what I usually recommend for just gaming, I have yet to see a single DDR5 kit at these speeds with 8 gig sticks, so you're going to end up with 32 gigabytes total by default, which is plenty of RAM for gaming. And remember, always use sticks in pairs, never mix and match different kits. In terms of EXPO versus XMP timings, the great news is that it doesn't matter which you get, as all the motherboards will use either one, and there's no performance difference between them. Just remember to actually go into the BIOS and turn on either EXPO or XMP to run the RAM at the full rated speed, as we show you in our How to Set Up a PC guide, linked down in the video description. For a deeper dive on RAM, check out our Best RAM for Gaming 2023 video, also linked down in the video description. Right now, in the US, a 2x16GB kit of DDR5 6000CL30 or 5600CL28, it's about $85 to $115. In particular, this Team Group T-Force 6000CL30 RGB kit has been the value champion at just under $100, and we've used a ton of them in ASUS, Gigabyte, ASRock, and MSI motherboards. Though I see some other kits now dropping to meet that price, including some nice RGB kits by ADATA. And there are some G-Skill Ripjaw kits as well. I'll leave several linked in the video description, so check those out for pricing and availability in your region. So what's the best motherboard for Ryzen 7600? The great news is that AM5 motherboards for Ryzen 7000 will all allow a future CPU upgrade to at least the next generation of Ryzen CPUs, meaning you won't have to buy a brand new motherboard in order to upgrade. While all the chipsets can seem confusing, from A620 to B650 to B650E to X670 to X670E, you can safely ignore the A620 boards, which don't officially support Precision Boost Overdrive and cost about the same as the cheaper B650 motherboards. And also ignore the expensive X670 and X670E boards, as they don't offer any gaming features over B650. And there really isn't any gaming difference between B650 and B650E, so again, we're just looking for a board that offers the gaming features that we want at the best price. For a deeper dive, check out our Best Ryzen Motherboard 2023 video. So what B650 motherboard should you get? Well, right now, there's the budget tier motherboards, which offer most of the features that gamers want, except for improved audio, and they range about $110 to $180. Then we have boards that also include improved audio, but not much else other than maybe they look a little nicer and a couple of more upgraded USB ports. They start around $190 to $250. Now that's a pretty big gap, and you can buy an external DAC or a digital audio device which bypasses the analog onboard audio for about $50 to $70, so keep that in mind. My top recommendation for price to performance B650 motherboard right now in the US is this ASRock B650M Pro RS Wi-Fi, which I picked up for $140, but it's dropped to $125 during the holiday shopping period. While most boards in this price range have 2 M.2 SSD slots, this board has 3 M.2 slots and the M.2 Wi-Fi slot. It has a very robust VRM and could support even up to a Ryzen 7950X, and it has good enough for gaming rear I/O with 4 high-speed USB ports, including a Type-C, along with 4 USB 2.0 ports for mice, keyboards, and lower bandwidth devices. Other boards to consider at the very low end are the Gigabyte B650M-K for about $110, the MSI Pro B650M-P, and the Gigabyte B650 DS3H for about $120. The only boards I avoid here are the ASUS Prime B650, as their weaker VRMs aren't great for future upgrades, and they cost about $150. Going up in price, there isn't much difference between the lower price boards and the middle tier, other than some offer a couple more high-speed USB ports. If you do want to spend the extra money and get a board with improved audio, after all, you might have this board through several CPU upgrades, then here's the ones that I would look at. From MSI, the B650 Mortar, Tomahawk, or Edge Wi-Fi start around $199 to $230. From Gigabyte, the B650 Aorus Pro AX or the Aero are identical boards with different styling, and the Aero is often under $200. Note that the Aorus Elite does not have improved audio on it. And from Asus, their Tough Gaming B650 Plus usually sells for around $215, but the Strix B650A is often just a little bit more for quite a bit more features. And recently we've seen sales on the B650F, which is what I'm currently using in my personal PC. ASRock doesn't really have anything with improved audio except for the relatively expensive Tai Chi board. I'll leave links to these motherboards in the video below, and you can check out current pricing and availability. Now let's talk about the best CPU cooler for the Ryzen 7600 and 7600X. The Ryzen 7600 comes with this included stock cooler, but I 100% recommend changing it out to at least a budget tower air cooler with 4 to 5 heat pipes like this Deepcool AG400 RGB cooler for around $25 to $30, or this Cooler Master Hyper 212 Halo for about $35 to $40. Other budget tower air coolers are also fine in this performance range, but if you want to go up in cooling, check out the Thermalright Peerless Assassin SE120 or the slightly newer version they call the Phantom Spirit SE120 for about $35, or the Deepcool AG500. For the best thermals and noise, along with amazing aesthetics, you can go with a 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler, like the Deepcool LS520 in my personal PC. I set the pump speed at 78% speed for zero pump noise. But really, any decent 240mm AIO will be more than enough. Note that with Precision Boost Overdrive turned on, the Ryzen 7600X is a bit more aggressive at eating up available cooling to boost slightly higher. But if the temperatures bother you, then make sure to go into the BIOS and just set a slightly lower maximum operating temperature like 89°C. Let's run through the rest of the parts. And we've got specific videos on the best PSU, the best cases, the best SSD for gaming if you want deeper dives. For the best SSD for our Ryzen 7600 gaming build, remember that even budget NVMe M.2 drives running at PCIe Gen 3 speed are way more than gaming can currently take advantage of. But drives with DRAM have become almost as cheap as DRAM-less ones, so I've begun to recommend options like the Team Group MP34 over options that are only slightly cheaper, like the Silicon Power A60. But honestly, most people can't tell the difference between the performance of the two, so feel free to buy a cheaper DRAM-less one if it helps your budget. For cases, my favorite right now, especially given that many of the good value motherboards are micro ATX, are the Bitfinex Nova Mesh ARGB for just $52 right now. I absolutely love this little case. Or the Deepcool CC360 ARGB. For those looking for an ATX case, check out the Bitfinex Nova Mesh ATX version. For those who want the Atrium style case, I love the DIY PC Q3 for micro ATX motherboards, or the Q10 for full ATX motherboards, or the Montech Sky 2 for just $95. For the PSU, since we're using better quality components and bigger power draw GPUs, I'd recommend at least a B tier or higher rated PSU from the PSU Cultist tier list. Right now, my top recommendations are the Corsair RME lineup, like the RM750E for about $99, which is on the new PCIe 5.0 and ATX 3.0 standard, meaning it has the NVIDIA 12-volt high power connector. Or you can grab an older gen PSU, like the MSI A650GF for a little cheaper, and I'll leave a couple of other units linked down in the video description. So how much does the best Ryzen 7600 gaming build actually cost? I've listed out 2 different current builds for you to use as a starting point. A $1,200 more budget-friendly Ryzen 7600 and RX 7800 XT combo with air cooler and cheaper motherboard that would destroy 1440p gaming, and a more premium Ryzen 7600 and RX 7900 XT build that would be great at 4K or 240Hz 1440p with a good quality liquid cooler, higher end motherboard, and Atrium style case that comes in right around $1,650. All the parts along with alternates listed down in the video description, and I've also linked all the various videos on RAM, motherboards, PSUs, how to build a PC, and how to set up a PC. And remember, if you got value out of this video, give it a like, it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe. Click that bell icon, that way you get notified when we release cool content. Hey, speaking of cool content, if you join as a member, we do all kinds of fun things like live stream this build right here. We also have a members only Discord, and we've got cool emojis as well. So check that out, and we'll catch you on the next one.